But yo, we ain't got no crime. Dropping $100 bills and billion-dollar bonds. Spending money we don't have, that's the name of the game. They call me cumulonimbus because you know I make it rain. Drive all kinds of cars, got all kinds of whips. People ask me how.
That's too funny.
I love it, right?
Where did you get that?
Tom of Crow Financial back with us. Tom, did
Yes.
we get the debt deal?
Yes, we got the debt deal done. Both the House and Senate passed the bill that raised the debt ceiling.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Of course, you were here last week. Remind me and remind our viewers what that even means for us.
So that means that the government can now sell more bonds, borrow more money to continue to meet our obligations and pay our bills.
Okay, and basically going back to what I said when we were making those analogies last week about our personal lives, it would be like if you asked for an increase on your own credit card and
Exactly.
you got that credit limit up.
You got the limit up, you can continue to pay your bills for another month or two.
So it'll be another month or two. That's
This
how
gets
long?
us through 2013.
Through when?
Through 2013.
Okay, so we have a little
So
bit
we've
of time.
got till after the next election.
Okay, doesn't that kind of mean crisis averted? Doesn't it mean all is well now? Why did the markets react so negatively?
Markets still don't like uncertainty. There's still a whole lot of uncertainty. You know, as soon as the deal was passed, we had folks on camera talking about now we can go raise taxes.
Right.
You're talking about diluting the currency market again, a lot of dollars out there, and that makes people think we're going to look at inflation.
Right. Well, do you know? I mean, do you have any idea on a personal note why they allowed this to happen and why people are so scared?
I think there's always there's a lot of moving parts in the economy.
Okay.
You've got to deal with not just the markets, but also you've got to look at employment. You've got to look at taxes.
True.
National, international. It's a whole global economy now. Everything's tied together, and you've got a human factor, which is the most unpredictable, and people like to avoid risk.
And I think we're also going to see a lot of cuts in other areas in our lives because of this. So although in retrospect it sounds great, now we have more money, we have till 2013, but at the end of the day we also are going to start to see more cuts on a personal note, don't you think?
I think we probably will.
And will that include everything? I mean, Kristen and I were talking before the show, we were talking about education and you know, cuts to loans and interest rates.
If interest rates go up, which they're likely to, that's going to affect a lot of student loans, yes.
Okay, so how do we get this back under control, and can we?
We can. I think it's a long road ahead of us. For personal and individual finance, debt reduction works. I think it'll work for the governments as well.
Okay.
You can certainly talk about reducing taxes. I think it's probably going to go the other way, at least for a little while. We're going to look at spending cuts, increased taxes, calling for a balanced approach.
Okay.
You know, we've got quite a bit of work to do.
Well, I know we're talking a lot globally, but let's talk a little locally, because New Mexicans are going to have a lot of questions. Should New Mexicans expect to see any fluctuation in everything from interest rate to the daily cost of living?
Interest rates, again, likely to go up.
Okay.
If we're looking at inflation, we're looking at too many dollars in the market because bonds are being sold and money's being printed.
Right.
Also, you got to be real conscious in New Mexico in particular, a lot of government money comes into this state with the national labs, the Air Force bases.
Right.
And if they start to see cutbacks, we might have some layoffs.
And that's a scary thing.
It is. That really, it serves in this state to smooth out some of the highs and lows of the economy, but when there's a hit, there's a hit.
Well, we did hear on the news that this was going to happen at Los Alamos. So, I mean, this is already becoming a reality.
Yes.
And is there any advice that you can give to people who are going to have to deal with these realities coming up soon in their lives? I
feel like I'm beating it to death, but just stay out of debt, really. If you're in debt, work on a plan to get out of it, and if you're not in it, stay out of it.
Absolutely, and it's tough. It is easier said than done.
Absolutely.
I can speak from experience. But what I want to also ask you, Tom, is why does the United States kind of prop up the entire world's economy?
Well, and everybody talks about the relative size of the U.S. versus China. In terms of gross domestic product, the U.S. is still quite a bit larger than any other economy. And there's this thing called a trade deficit, which means we're buying more stuff and sending more dollars out than we're taking in other currencies and other things. So we're really propping up every other economy in the world.
So it's so important that we stay on track and that we stay on target and that we stay ahead. And that seems to be, like I said, a lot easier said than done. So let me ask you this, because you do this for a living, you work in this field, and you're saying one of the solutions is stay out of debt. If you had to just speak to a viewer, speak to me, what would you tell people would be the first step logistically on how they could start getting themselves out of debt and preparing a better budget plan?
That's just it. The key word is budget.
Okay.
Know what you've got coming in every month, get a handle on what's going out, and if if what's going out is greater than what's coming in, you've got to start looking at where you cut. And you know, responsible use of debt, home mortgages and that kind of stuff, sometimes it's a necessary thing to do.
Sure.
But you really don't want to be where you're month to month going further and further into the credit cards just to keep above water.
No, it's great advice. And if we're looking at the actual deal in Washington, could you provide us, before we go, with just a few of the details so people understand a little bit more specifically?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time and a lot of time on TV with the politicians beating each other up. Ended up with a deal that kind of looks like a 0.5% cut over the next 10 years. Which doesn't really do a whole lot. Once you include interest and automatic increases, we really are on about an 80-year plan to get back to a balanced budget. If we're 40% overspent right now, we really didn't slow the runaway train down a whole lot. We just kind of moved it from 100 to 99.5 miles an hour.
And that is not a big change.
This super committee that's been established has a lot of work to do and a lot of hard choices to make.
Well, hopefully you'll continue to come back and give us all the updates and all the detailed advice. And I know a lot of people will want to understand a little bit more about their own personal finances.
Absolutely.
So let's tell people how they can reach you and find you.
You can reach me in my office in Albuquerque, 243-2281.
Okay.
On the web, crowfa.com. And also make sure to check out focusonthefuture.tv for some free video clips, education geared towards high school, college age, and stressing financial literacy.
Yes, and I think at some point we should talk a little bit more in depth about that, because it's really fabulous that you're getting people started on being on track with their finances at a young age. And it's a wonderful thing.
If we can turn economic sense into common sense, we'll go a long way.
That's the way to do it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Tom.
You're
really good
welcome.
advice and good information that we all need right now. And we all need to understand what's going on within the government so that we can all make better choices for our own lives. Thank you. Appreciate it. And coming up next, we've got some food on the way. You might want to stick around for this, Tom. Coming up next, we're cooking with the Luna Mansion.